Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Beyond the Brief. Today, we're very fortunate to have Paul Roehrig, the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer with Ascendion. Paul, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to chat. Do the listeners a favor and start off by telling a bit about your background and what you're up to lately.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with what I'm up to lately, and thanks so much, Chris, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to get to chat. Really love what you're doing, and it seems like you're doing a really interesting kind of gig here. And so, thank you very much for including us. So lately, what am I doing? I'm the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer for a company called Ascendion, and we do software engineering, but we do it a little bit differently. It's we're using AI more and more, which a lot of people are saying, and there's a lot of talk about AI and what it can do and what it can't do. But I've been involved in technology and business and research and AI deployment and digital deployment before that, and um, the leadership team and I wanted to really do something different, and so we're really one of the first companies that's kind of deploying it at the scale that we're deploying it right now. And so it's a relatively new brand in the market, but we're doing a lot of really interesting work in the software engineering space for some of the best companies in the world. And so it's been a lot of fun and really exciting to be doing something new at a really remarkable inflection point in business and technology. Before that, I was with a large IT services company called Cognizant, and where I founded and ran the Center for the Future of Work and held different strategy and marketing roles there as well, and authored some books with some co-authors that was great fun doing that. And then before that, I was an industry analyst at Forrester Research for some years. And then I did big outsourcing deals with Hewlett Packard and some other companies before that. So yeah, and I started out as a musician. So it's been a, like the song says, a long strange trip it's been.
Well, Paul, you can't just give us a little taste there and not finish that. Like, so what'd you play? What kind of music? I saw in your profile that you actually played at Disney.
Yeah, I did. I
So
did.
it's quite a spectrum there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a yeah, it was great fun. I used to be a drummer, and I played in blues bands and rock bands and show bands, and basically anywhere somebody would pay me to play. So that was a lot of fun, and I did it for quite a few years. And the more into kind of electronic music I got, and computers, and the more interested I became in education and the use of technology for how do we help people learn better. And so that's what got me back into grad school, and then I started working in technology services. So it's been great fun.
So you touched on university. You went to the University of Florida and got a bachelor's in journalism. Great
Yeah,
school, great program. And then you went to this terrible university called Syracuse and have your PhD in philosophy. Wait, but I found it interesting. It's philosophy, but it's instructional development and
right.
management science, which doesn't sound very philosophical to me. That sounds fairly like linear. So how do those two relate?
Yeah, so yeah, the degree title is doctorate of philosophy. That's sort of the convention. Um, and it did start out, there was some linearity to it, right? But it was more around, um, how do people learn, and how do we help people learn better? That was really what the instructional design, development, and evaluation program was all about. And so I did a master's in that, and there was an element of structure, but I've found since then that being able to structure inquiry, and then I finished that up with the doctorate, where I learned how to do research, and I learned how to, ask good questions, or ask better questions, I should say, and putting those things together within the context of creativity and management science. It actually did kind of make sense in the end. And then when I started working, not as a musician, but as someone in a technology services company, it actually helped, right? Being able to write, being able to ask good questions, and healthy work habits that I learned as a musician, which is, you better show up, and you better have the right gear, and have the right costume on, and be on time, and all that good stuff.
as the guy that sets the time for the band, you definitely have to be on time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
was late once and I still have panic attacks about it.
I imagine, yeah. Um, well, fascinating journey. The future of work. Tell me a little bit about that. What is the future of work? And I mean, you know, it's we're avid fans of it. In fact, our agency has an open talent model,
Mm,
and so we rather than having hundreds of people on staff, we have a very small team, but a collective we've built of over
mm.
60 agencies globally that give us access to talent that's precise with no carry cost. And you know, tell us a little bit about the your view on the future of work and talent.
Yeah, I mean, the future of work right now is, it's like on the I mean, it started out as it sounded kinda cool, uh, but the reality is, and all credit to Malcolm Frank, who was one of the founding executives of the Center for the Future of Work, and Ben Pring, who helped me, stand the whole thing up. Um, we were really became as we were a big technology services company, that was with a former employer, we we got to see firsthand how were people engaging with or not engaging with the technology that we were helping build. And the bigger we got and the more impactful the technology got and the more business changed and as the technology continued to mature, the more important it was not just for ourselves because we were curious about it, but for clients. We wanted to help them try and figure out like what is the future more likely to be. It wasn't like in the future, we're going to have talking dogs and flying cows and stuff like that. It was really like, okay, these are people that are trying to make the best decisions possible. How do we give them the best insight and the best analysis from the practitioner side, from the builder side? Um, so it kind of took the best of the analyst world, and tried to wed it to the practical experiences that we were getting from talking to clients every day and trying to do the right thing with clients. And so that became the center for the future of work. And we tried to understand what was that future going to be. And that's kind of continued now on Ascendion, where we're doing some similar kinds of research, not at that scale, but we're still trying to solve that problem of how do we help people engage with technology in a way that's more productive, healthier, and it's really moving their businesses in the right direction.
That connects clear back to crossing the chasm, right?
Oh,
Where
exactly.
it's not what technology can do; it's what you can do with technology. Because the so much of the stuff out there is we're slave to, instead of it the other way around, where we're actually benefiting from. You know, when we think of the AI tools that we use, the we first start with what are we trying to solve and is the tool capable of it, rather than trying to build to plug it into a process that we've been using for years. We tend to build process around its superpower,
Hmm,
and and love how it gives us back time to think at a level that we often weren't able to, because there's so much of the kind of
hmm,
routine of process got in the way. um, but going back to your point about the future of work, you know, I love that, because it is about how people think and act and behave around things that could do things for them.
hmm,
And you know, one of the hardest, I mean, change is one of the hardest things for us to do as humans, right? We're so comfortable in what we know that even if there's a better solution, which AI and other tools pretend to be in many cases, and can be if they're used properly, but the combination of thinking ahead to the way people actually interact with these things, and how that relates to their day job today and what it could be in 2
hmm,
years or
hmm,
5 years is really essential. I
hmm,
love that. So, break it, you know, one of the things I was really intrigued with is that the tagline on your brand is engineering to elevate life.
hmm,
I love that because you're a tech firm, and most tech firms are all about speeds and feeds, and instead of actually the net benefit that should be there, which is making life better in some way,
hmm,
shape, or
hmm.
form. So congrats to for having a evocative and like human benefit like proposition in your line. What else do you do along that front to make sure that's evident in what you do as a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the engineering to elevate life, it did come from a point of um, you're exactly right about humans and change, right? There's no doubt about it that we tend to, the first reaction is kind of a defensive posture, right? Well, hang on. Um, but on the other hand, we're remarkably, agile in adaptation. We're pretty good at it
Mm,
in the end. So what we're not good at is things that don't make sense to us. Like humans are like we're like, hang on, and whether the technology of the day is AI or back to the steam engine or electricity. And I'm sure that there were cave people at the time where one was arguing like, I'm not sure we should really use fire. It's really hot and can burn us. So that dialogue of is this the right adaptation? The other, it is true that we do kind of clench at the beginning, but then if it makes sense to us, we're really open. Humans are really remarkably open to it. And the most recent evidence is just look at the adoption curve of AI, right? We're all in. I mean, it's hundreds of millions of users a month, right? It's just this remarkable groundswell. And you would say, well, on the other hand, when it makes sense to us, we are remarkably agile at adapting, right? And so being able to figure out like how do we then, and this is the fun part right now, is how do you um, embrace that change and create something that is viewed as beneficial by people who need to use these tools, right? Because we know that they're not perfect, right? They've never been perfect. No new technology is. And in fact, the old ones are still busting up all the time too,
yep.
right? And so now, though, we're at this kind of remarkable inflection point where humans have an opportunity to embrace the next new kind of revolutionary productivity enhancer, if you will. And that productivity enhancer opens up new innovation. And our view of the case, to bring it back to Ascendion just for a second, is that software is the axle around which all of these changes occur, right? So whether it's how you bank or how we invent new medicines or how we insure our families, all of that is how we're talking to each other. We're communicating
Yep.
using software.
Yep.
And so our view is if that's the axle and you change how you do software, how you make it and manage it, and you're using the best available tools, which right now today is AI, then can't you make things better?
Mm, yeah.
And the leadership team of Ascendion, I mean, we all have like sometimes more experience than we might want to talk about,
Right.
all the time. And with big technology services companies, and we thought, it was great, and they are great. That those methods are great, the tools are great, and they're going to continue to add value. But there are some things that we can do a little bit better. And that's why because the world didn't really need another services company, but we thought, well, that was what we started with. And we said, well, what would the world need? And maybe a better way of doing software engineering.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. One of the things we think about a lot for our clients is who's the enemy or what's the enemy, right? And sometimes the enemy is the internal dysfunction, even in an organization's ability to deliver experiences. And so many organizations are so busy telling people what to think about what they do, rather than actually understanding where the audience starts in the conversation to
Mhm.
to meet them where they are. And, so one of the things we often advise clients to think about is, make sure you're really carefully evaluating customer centric KPIs. That's the quickest way to get your commercial KPIs to really hum, is to get, happy customers. I mean,
Yep.
it's like the statement of the obvious, but the number of companies that have lower funnel, really rigorous KPIs and next to nothing on the consumer side or customer side, it's like astounding. Definitely a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I
So,
mean I think you're saying something important. I want to
yeah,
just comment on that. I think I agree with I agree with you, and I think I'm not going to speak on behalf of the other leaders of the team, but I know that the notion of of client centricity for us is one of you're not going to find anybody in any company that's like we don't care about clients. Right? That's
right,
just but how you act, right? It's easy to say, it's harder to do.
yeah,
And so it really comes down to, and our CEO KK is a fantastic leader when it comes to elevating the level of relevance and criticality of the culture. If you build a culture where you're holding each other to an expectation of we're going to do the right thing for clients, yeah, the metrics do move, but it's harder to build that than a set of metrics. It's harder to build a system that genuinely does care about it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, people want to work with you. They want to do business with you. So the economics do work out.
Yeah. What's ironic is, and I've done this many times with C-suite leaders, is ask them what brands they admire, and they list all the obvious ones, Apple, Nike, blah 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 blah, and then I ask them, what do you think the commonalities for all those are? And it always comes back to culture and DNA of caring about the customer experience obsessively on some
Mm.
levels, or organically, just natural. Like, it's not a secondary, it's not a on the checklist. It's like just natural. It's innate to their behavior. And the most successful organizations prioritize that just natively. I mean, it's in their DNA. And that actually defines the culture. And
Right.
one of the interesting things is certainly leaders can influence culture, but culture defines itself from behaviors and actions that occur in and around the organization. You can't dictate, you can't legislate culture. You can put
No.
up guardrails and guidance and support, but honestly, it happens on its own. And it's great to hear you say that your CEO literally has that, just like, and naturally,
Yeah.
and puts the customers first, and doing what's right for them always. Because I think, you know, taking the hit for the quarter is better than taking the hit for the life of the brand. And you see that all the time, where organizations don't, like, prioritize that, and it's a shame. It's not a marketing problem, but it's a marketing conundrum, right?
There
Right?
is, yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no ad's gonna fix it, right?
No ad's gonna fix it, and no technology is gonna fix it.
Right,
I mean, the other thing is, as much as we talk about, I mean, we're a technology company. We talk about technology every day,
right.
but at the at the root of it, right, the heart of the AI revolution is still a beating human heart.
Yeah,
And so if you and a services company is intended to be of service. And
yeah,
if you lose that service mentality, if you don't nurture it and really help it grow,
yeah,
then you're going to get lost. And that happens, and it's sad. It's sad to me to see that happen. And that's why, we wanted to come, I think many of us have been blessed with being with companies with strong cultures
yeah,
that do that. And that's one of the things we have learned, or at least I have learned, that I wanted to come to a smaller company and help incubate that and nurture it.
yeah. So, Paul, you're clearly a lifelong learner, and one that has been able to learn and apply what you've learned, unlike a lot of people who have kind of tangential wanderings just because they're curious. Um, on your journey, as a learner and marketer, what are some of the things that you picked up? Who are some of the mentors that really were catalysts for your continued growth and development? And was there any? I'm always curious to ask people, what was some of the best advice you ever got? And then, is there any that was just terrible, but at the time seemed really good?
Is there any the worst? That's a good one. Was the worst advice I ever got? I'm gonna have to ponder that one. Um, I've been really lucky. I mean, it's not. I mean, you're giving me credit for things I don't know if I should get. I mean, I've been really lucky to be around people that have helped me or pushed me or corrected me if I was screwing something up. And I mentioned Malcolm Frank, who was my one I worked really closely with. He was my boss for years. And he's one of the best in the industry, right? The guy, he's really, and I still learn from him. Ben as well, with co-authors of, Ben Pring, another, just, there aren't too many people. Actually, there's nobody I've met that sees the world the way he does, right? It's very, it's exclusive and rare to be around people like that. And so I've been really lucky, and I'm lucky now, right? The people that I'm working with now, it's like the leadership team here is it's not like we always agree on things,
Yeah.
but we have like loud disagreements, right? It's like really passionate, and I love that, and that maybe that comes back to, my background in music, which is you want that, right? You want that dynamic tension, right? And people that are willing to give you, the truth, right? Give
Mhm.
you the like, this is not good. Please don't do that, right? That's not a good thing. That part that you did that's where you messed up, right? And that's like a gift for somebody, right? To say that is good at something, and most of the advice that I've gotten has been like that. I've gotten to see people, demonstrate good leadership skills, demonstrate empathy, demonstrate technical capability, demonstrate operational rigor. Um, and so I'm still trying to figure it out, right? But the one thing that I am okay at is getting really smart people to allow me to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much my career in a nutshell.
I like it. Yeah, well, I give you a lot of credit for, being both human about it, because I think, I mean, you're in a very senior role. You've had a great career across the board, and a lot of people don't, aren't as comfortable being forthright about how you've learned and had, bumps along the way and needed the course correction from others. So I give you credit for that for sure. There's no such thing as a perfect path. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And the
Nah,
people that say that are, they probably struggling with something that they're not, they might need therapy on or something. um,
that's for sure.
you know, the I'm curious, on your journey, is there anything that you've worked on where the strategy or the insight that you worked on was found in almost a circumstantial way? It wasn't on the brief, you didn't have it written down, but you stumbled across it in some way that helped materially improve the end product of what you were building, whether it was ad or trade show booth or whatever it might have been from a marketing perspective. Is there anything along those lines that where you stumbled on something or it emerged out of a conversation with a customer or a competitor or anything like that?
Uh, every day. I mean, most of what the team comes up with, and it's not just me, right? It's the people that it comes back to that kind of dynamic tension, right? If you've got, whether you're writing a book or you mentioned the tagline. That tagline did come out of the ether, but it came out of the ether within a context of people trying to describe something that didn't exist yet.
Mhm.
And what do we want? What did we want to do? I mean, we're engineers, right? I'm not. I'm the least technical person in the company, but it's a company of engineers, and they let me hang out with them. And so, what we want to, we wanted to impact lives, and we wanted to do it in a positive. We didn't want to hurt any, make it
Right.
worse. We wanted to elevate it, and so, but it was in the dialogue of that which is, what you were describing. I would say it's kind of like it's dynamic tension and improvisational, which to me that comes back to like when you get a dynamic tension and a creative um, uh, permission to be creative, right? And people, it requires a level of vulnerability
Yeah.
because a lot of the stuff that you come up with is going to be terrible, right? It's going to be, it's going to end up on the cutting room floor, and that's good, right?
Yep.
And if you're all nervous about, this idea has to be the best idea ever in the world in the history of marketing and taglines, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to lock yourself up, and it's going to be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. We often think about brands as uh, incredibly multidimensional, and the ones that we as consumers enjoy most are those that are continuing to build on the conversation and are comfortable having good days and bad days. just like friends, right? You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you talk to a friend. The good news with a friend is until you get real old, at least you pick up the conversation where you left off and don't repeat the same stuff over and over again. And but it's additive, right? It's you might pick up from that some nugget of what was last discussed, or recollection of the last conversation. And brands should be doing that too, and to do that well and I would argue in the B2B space in particular, that's such a miss for so many brands. They're so busy being product driven,
Mm,
features driven, RTB driven, which that stuff's fine, but that's not why people buy. It's
yeah.
the best kept, the most obvious and yet seemingly best kept secret. Our brain. I always love to think about it this way, that our senses are analog, um, and so we need that sensory context to
Mm.
relate to other humans, and
Oh
we
yeah.
uh, and and the humans are the ones that deliver the product or service in every case. So if in the order of things, we need the sensory feedback that's there to give us the pathway to then rationalizing how we
Yeah.
relate to those products and services.
No, you're
And
absolutely well, it's very well said. I couldn't agree more. In fact, when we were putting together, um, like, I mean, it was a new code. We started with a blank sheet of paper and what became, Ascendion, and we the founders, right? We really wrestled well and long around what does it mean? What's the promise that we're making?
hmm,
What's the dialogue that we want to have with people that we aspire to serve? And then once you have like a concurrence, maybe not even agreement, but concurrence around that, then you can ask the next level of question, which is, well, what is that? What do we say? What does it sound like? What
mhm,
is it? What is it? What's the soundtrack? Is there music? Is there a smell? Is there a taste? What is this brand? How do you instantiate this brand?
yeah,
And like you said, I mean, there's a very kind of sensory nature to this because
yeah,
we're human.
that's right. Yeah. I mean, and the reason that's important is for every reason. Internally, you need it to build that culture and to have that connection, to have that confidence in each other that you're building something that has a destination that you all see, at least generally in the same territory. And the organizations that don't have that, the consumer sees that, they smell it, they sense it, even if it's not overt in the ads and the other experiences in the product. Sadly, products and services can be matched and copied, and even with copyrights and market first mover advantage, it's only temporary. What's not temporary is culture and belief systems that you can relate to and count on, and that comes back to the very premise you mentioned that KK is great about, which is doing the right thing for customers always.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, as we think about Sendian, tell us, is there anything that's coming up, or that you want to be sure our listeners hear or know about the organization and what you're doing? Is there any significant news or a reminder of what you're already doing?
Oh yeah. Um, Significant news. So what's the insignificant news? Now, I think, if you're in this, if you're touching code, right? If you're using software or somebody is using software,
Yeah.
uh, there's a better way. I think that's kind of in a nutshell, is there's a better way to build it and manage it, right? And it's a $1.6 trillion a year industry, not even including the economic impact.
Right.
So when you're looking at, that kind of number just makes your head hurt, right? And we're like a relatively smaller player in the universe of service providers. Um, but it's time for something different. We talk a lot about this moment now with business and technology where we're kind of at this inflection point with AI, and we talk a lot about, are we going to be the last dinosaur or the first mammal? Um,
Mm,
because there are a lot of big, huge, powerful companies kind of surviving and doing important work. There's no doubt about it. But we think there's another way to use these tools to build better software, to be more transparent with clients, to take risk and time out of something that has traditionally for decades been kind of slow and kind of clunky. Um, and now we have new tools and new systems that are maturing every single day, and we're not afraid of them. We're
Yeah.
leaning into it, and there are going to be bumps in the roads, and we're not going to get it right all the time. But now if we just keep going, we're starting to see, like, more than green shoots, like, actual plants coming up, and things are
Good.
are starting to really happen with agents deployed along the software development life cycle and the management life cycle that help improve lives.
Yeah. Well, and the ability to do that to allow the people that have the vision for increased productivity, increased user satisfaction, increased everything. Um, giving them that time back to continue that that journey, because it is a journey. There's no, it will, with quantum around the corner, the pace of all of this is going to change, 10x, 100x again. um and I love the analogy of be the first mammal versus last dinosaur. That's a great one. Well, Paul, this has been absolutely gripping, and I'm really glad that we had you on as a guest. So
Thank you.
the conversation's been rich. The So people can get a glimpse into you a little bit more.
Uh-oh.
Hollywood just called, and while we were on, and said that they're going to do a biopic on you. What's the name of the film, or who's going to play you, or what's the plot or theme?
uh the name of the biopic is a series of fortunate accidents.
I love it. I love it. I love
But
it.
I don't know who's gonna play me. I don't know.
I love it. That's fantastic. Well, Paul, if our guests, anybody wants to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way they can find you?
Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn. You can check out ascendion.com. You can learn a little bit more about the company, and you can find me on there. But yeah, LinkedIn, I'm all over that. So yeah, go ahead and reach out. Love to
Fa-
chat.
Fantastic. Paul, thank you so much again.
All right,
And
thank you, Chris.
for that, we'll wrap up this episode of Beyond the Brief. Until next time, have a good one.
Thanks.